Have you ever gone into the doctor's office because your stomach is bothering you or you're having period problems? And after a battery of tests, they come back and they say, well, all your test results look fine. There's no physical reason why this is showing up for you. But here's a pill to help make the symptoms a little bit less extreme so that you can deal with them in your day to day life. Does that land with you? Maybe it isn't physical. In this week's episode, we take a look at how powerful the emotional body is, where we tend to hold certain emotions, and how we can resolve physical symptoms through working the emotional angle. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I did a post at the end of 2023 that has gotten a lot of attention. And even though I have had a few episodes throughout the life of this podcast that have talked about how important emotions are in the system, I thought because this particular graphic got so much attention that it would be good to talk about it because clearly it resonated with people. So in December, I posted, and it was actually a repost from someone it was Amanda Nova Wellness, had posted a graphic of the emotional centers or emotional energy centers of the body and where we tend to carry certain emotions in our system. And I thought it was such a beautiful visual representation because a lot of times, and I think that some of this really is just a byproduct of the fact that we've been indoctrinated into a traditional Western model where we have a pain or we have some sort of a symptom or something, and we think we need a pill or we think we have to go to the doctor because the doctor is going to have the answer for why this is happening. And we totally disregard the emotional, energetic body and its innate wisdom as maybe being the reason why we're having this physical challenge. And so this is why I thought it was so darn important, because it was a beautiful visual of where we carry rejection, where we carry anger, where we carry fear, where we carry family lineage stuff, where we carry challenges around like our basic survival, and that all of these things manifest in our body. There was a post I did, I want to say it was earlier in 2023, where again, it was a reshare from a somatic wellness practitioner. I love to share other people's work because I want other people to be aware that there are more voices like mine in the conversation. There are lots of practitioners out there that are starting to make these connections and that are trying to let people know that our body keeps score and it holds on to the historical stuff. It keeps track. And even when we think we've buried it, it's gone to rest, it's no longer an issue, it lives in our system. And then we wonder, we're like, oh, I haven't had problems with this in so many years. Why is this coming back to the surface? Well, it means that there's something about it that still needs to be resolved and still needs to be addressed. So whenever I see gems like this, the somatic wellness coach, it was emotions are energy and motion. I love that. And this energy will mastitize, meaning it will become manifest in the physical in some sort of usually negative way, unless it is properly addressed. So I've had Dr. Emily Wilson on the show where she talks about how we hold emotions in our pelvis and how that can translate into vaginismus and painful sex and hip mobility issues because we're holding energy in an area and it needs a way to be released. So, this infographic that I posted from another account from Amanda Nova Wellness was a beautiful visual, right? I'm a visual learner. So, anything that I can share that's visual, if I'm not cool enough and creative enough to come up with it, I share it from other people because there's so much beautiful collective wisdom around all of this. And I'm not an expert in all areas, right? So, she had this really beautiful graphic where, our throat center, when we have issues with self expression or lack of trust or inability to speak our feelings, we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Oh my goodness, there are so many women who come into my practice for acutonics and they're like, oh, I've got like all this tightness in my shoulder and up into my neck. Sometimes it creates headaches. That part of the body is where we hold the weight of the world. Maybe this is the fact that you're the one that has to make the decisions all the time. Or you feel like if you don't plan all the things ahead and you don't make all of the lunches and you don't make all the travel arrangements, that things aren't going to get done. Maybe this feels like the dishwasher needs to be loaded a certain way because it's not going to wash right if I don't do it, right? We carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. And there's a lot of us that do this. I am guilty. I am guilty of doing this because for me, it was a safety mechanism. Long ago in my life, I had been through an abusive marriage and I kept myself safe by controlling everything. I made the plans. I knew the schedule. I controlled the bank account. I had to because it was the only way that I felt any semblance of control in my life and that I felt any sort of safety. Because if we couldn't pay bills, then that hit my survival center. I already had enough problems with my reproductive system. I didn't need any help with that. Right. So we have different things that show up. And yeah, I had a lot of headaches during that time frame in my life. I had a lot of tightness in my traps and that like radiated up into my head. I got laryngitis and actually I got strep throat on a very regular basis during that time frame. I never made the connection. I never made the connection until I started doing this work later on in my life. And that's exactly why I tell you this stuff on Reproductive Rebel every week, because there are connections, symptoms that we see on a regular basis that don't make us feel great in our body are connected to the storyline, the narrative of our life. Maybe it might not even be present tense. Maybe it's past tense. Or maybe you thought you resolved the thing, but for some reason, certain sets of symptoms are coming up again and you're not quite sure why. I worked with a practitioner several years ago, and she talked about the fact that our body is the movie projector of our life. I think that's such a beautiful way to word it because it keeps score. It remembers. Even if our mind blocks certain things out, and we give our mind a lot of credit. We think that that thing that sits on top of our shoulders is far superior to our body wisdom, and it's a bunch of bullshit. Our body knows way more and is way smarter and gives us information exponentially faster. You know that feeling when you're in a room and you're around somebody and you're like, ooh, I don't know what it is about this person, but they give me a hinky feeling. And you could feel it like low in your gut. And you're like, ooh, I don't know. This person's got weird vibes. I don't know them, but there's something that feels weird here, right? Your body feels it. This is kind of like that sound healing episode. I was talking about how we feel vibration in our system. It's the same thing. We know when we're in a situation that doesn't feel right. And yet, this thing that sits on top of our shoulders, our head, our ego mind, tries to rationalize things and tries to talk us out of or talk us into things that are against what our body is telling us. So, if you don't take anything else from this show, I really want you to take away the fact that your body knows what's up. And we have not been taught, we have not had a relationship fostered with this absolutely amazing body of ours. We hold grief and sadness and loneliness in our chest, in this heart center. We hold fear lower in our body, feelings of criticism, self-judgment, feeling unworthy, sexual issues. Maybe it's been shaming, either around your sexuality or being a sexual being, family issues, childhood conditioning. So this is like family lineage stuff. This is all held in the lower stomach and below reproductive area of our body. There is a reason why we have so much cycle-related dysfunction in our culture. We're meant to be a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed. Yeah, I know I'm quoting Usher and Ludacris, but it's true. We have this societal expectation that we're supposed to act a certain way, but we're supposed to be a different way with a partner. We're supposed to be like this ferocious sexual nymph, yet pious and pure and innocent. You can't be both. It doesn't compute. And we struggle against these kinds of societal expectations and narratives in our culture. We're not supposed to be sexual as females, and yet we're supposed to be sexual as females. It's so messed up. And because of all of these contradictory statements about what our bodies are or are not supposed to look like, or how we're supposed to perform our identity and our gender and all of these kinds of things, we internalize all of this stuff as we're trying to reconcile societal conversation that will never match up until the narrative begins to change. We used to revere bleeding bodies. There was a reverence for bleeding bodies. There was an understanding in some cultures that when you were in your bleeding time, the barrier between the spiritual world and the physical world was thinner. And it was your job to pay homage to your ancestors and communicate with your ancestors, to show reverence from the family line that you came from. We have lost this. It doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to get it back, but it means that we have to change the conversation. We have to make it okay to be a bleeding body again. We've lost sight of that. There is so much shame and so much guilt. I talked about it a little bit in the episode about first periods when girls are starting their periods, and that there's a lot of like shame and tucking the pad up the sleeve and running to the bathroom. Like, we hold all of that. And then we go into a partnership later on in our life and we feel like we need to hide this from our partner. We don't talk to our partner about what it is that our body needs. Sometimes I wish I was a lot more creative when it came to creating reels. Some of it, I'm going to be straight up honest, is the fact that I'm technologically challenged, but my age is showing a little bit. But there is an account that I follow. I want to say it's Balanced Buyers, and I get the biggest kick out of her reels, and they're brilliant. And again, I'm sharing all of these names. These people don't know me from a hole in the wall, but I'm sharing these names because they are sharing the wisdom that we freaking need. And a rising tide lifts all boats. I can't be the only voice in this conversation if this whole mindset, this whole narrative that we have internalized is going to shift. It's going to take lots of us saying the same thing for this message to really permeate and get through to other people. So Balanced Buyers, she does a series of reels about like different phases of the cycle. And the one that I saw the most recently just totally made me laugh because her husband comes into the room and he looks like he's going to slap her on the ass, right? Which, we all have mixed feelings about that, right? Either because of the storyline we walk in with or because of where we are in our cycle. And that's actually the point that she's driving home is there's a board that indicates where she is in her cycle. And it says luteal phase, do not touch ass. And I died laughing because it's so true. There are phases of our cycle where we're going to be open to the little like sexual pat on our butt because we're closer to the follicular phase. We're playful. We feel sexual, right? When we're on the doorstep of our period, don't touch me. And I think it's so great that she finds this really beautiful, humorous way of sharing this kind of information. It comes back to understanding what our bodies are telling us and what our bodies need in each of these phases. Did you know that you can actually supercharge your productivity? It's true. If you learn to work with your phases of your cycle instead of against the phases of your cycle, you actually become somewhat of a force of nature, not to be punny. Join me on March 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Cycle Productivity Secrets. I want to give you the 411 on how your cycle works, the gifts that you are given in terms of your productivity and your health in each of these phases, and how you can become a superpower planning your workflow with the phases of your cycle. The link to enroll is in the show notes. And now, back to the show. I run a class every so often. It's called Body Basics. I do have the recording available on my website. So if you missed the live version, you can absolutely pick it up. Again, the course is called Body Basics, but it essentially takes you through each phase of your cycle. Energetically, what are you supposed to feel like? What is physically happening inside of your body? So why do you feel the way that you do? This is what your strengths are, right? I have a course called Cycle Productivity Secrets that teaches you how to plan your workflow with different phases of your cycle, because you can be a multitasking superstar during certain parts of your month, but other parts of your month, you're really good at planning, but single focused tasks. Doesn't make you any less capable. It just means your brain is literally biochemically wired for certain types of tasks at different times during the month, and your energy level is going to change. So as your energy level changes and your strengths and gifts change in each of those phases, you can plan your work so you always look like top dog and like you're performing at 1,000% all the time. But it's because you're actually like mining the correct energy in your body at the appropriate time. I tend to record all my podcasts during my fertile window because I am the most verbal. I am articulate. I have more energy. I am charismatic. I'm able to connect with people better. I am an introvert masquerading as an extrovert, folks. So when I am in my luteal phase, you're normally more introverted anyway, but because I am naturally an introvert, I want to be a freaking hermit during that time frame. It doesn't mean I don't love people. It doesn't mean I don't love my job. It just means that I am not strong during that time period to record a podcast because that requires me to be verbal in a way that I don't have the energy for. So I plan those things and I teach classes and things like that during the times of my month when I'm going to give you the best version of me. And in those times where I want to be a hermit, that's where I plan what I'm going to do during that time frame the next month. I teach you how to do that in Cycle Productivity Secrets. So you have gifts all the time. And we aren't taught to look at it that way because we live in a culture where we're expected to be in spring and summer energy all the time. And so then we internalize things like, I feel like a failure today. I can't do enough today. I'm not showing up in the best way possible today, which makes me feel like a failure. I'm not doing enough today, which makes me feel guilty that I'm not doing enough, right? And all of those emotions. Okay, so if you did not listen to Women's Worth with Angela Castrino, highly recommend listening to that episode. It was a couple of weeks ago. And she and I talked about this exact thing, the shame and guilt that we internalize when we're not doing enough. We hold that in our body, in these emotional energy centers, and it starts to manifest itself. I gave a teenager who's having stomach problems an herbal formula that is more emotionally focused the other day, and her stomach problems are improving. There is a connection because you could have a stomach problem. You could go to a GI doctor and they're going to look at it and they're going to go, you're just fine. And they're going to make you do the barium swallow and they're going to make you do a colonoscopy and they're going to tell you there was no findings because physically there isn't anything wrong. Have you ever gone to the doctor and experienced that? You are put through the freaking battery of tests. All those tests, you're waiting for answers and they come back and they go, oh, they're not conclusive. There's no findings. We didn't find anything. Everything looks fine. And you're like, but I'm still experiencing this symptom. I still feel like shit. They're like, oh, well, we can't find why. Like, you should be fine. Or here's a medication to mute that symptom so that you can function during the day. Doesn't solve the problem. It makes you feel a little better. But what are the side effects of that med? So we have things that show up in our system because of what we hold in there. It could be digestive. It could be feeling unsafe. It could be something like money issues or finances being connected to that feeling of survival. That could challenge your fertility. We hold rejection, betrayal, guilt, feelings of unworthiness and shame, fear, family lineage stuff, burdens like the weight of the world on our shoulders, safety issues around self-expression. How many of you experience that? Where you don't feel like you can be seen and heard, or like you're not seen and heard, and having physical issues come out of that. Man, I had more throat-related stuff when I was in college. I went to an ENT. I had lymph nodes that were swollen because I had never had problems with them until I got to that stage of my life. I had had a couple of bad relationships where I didn't feel safe enough to express myself. And then all of a sudden, all my illnesses ended up in there. I look back at it now and I completely see the connection between the throat and self-expression issues, lack of trust, inability to speak feelings. It's all connected. So I want you to think about areas in your body that you don't feel like are performing the way that you would like. Maybe you're having period problems. Maybe you're having digestive issues. Maybe you're having bowel issues. Maybe you're having headaches. Maybe you have a lot of sinus stuff. Maybe you walk around with really tight traps all the time and you're not quite sure why. Think about areas of your body where you're holding tension, or maybe it's not performing as well as you would like it to. And take a look at that post that I did it was December 29th of 2023. And look at that graphic. That graphic has been shared more times. And I truly believe it's because it resonates deeply with people. I did have one person negatively comment on that post and said something to the effect of, well, why would you focus on the negative when there's gifts to be held in these areas as well? And I agree with that. There are gifts that are held in all of these areas, but people tend to focus on what isn't working well for them. But they think it's because there's something wrong with their body. And what I wanted to convey in sharing this graphic is, hey, this might not be as straightforward as my stomach isn't working properly. It might be more like, what stuff that no longer serves you are you internalizing and maybe need to let go of because it's not serving you? And you're having a symptom in this particular part of your body as a result of that. I didn't mean it to be framed in a negative way. I was hoping that it was going to be an invitation for conversation and to open the door for people to get curious around how their biointelligent body was attempting to communicate with them. Because our body doesn't speak to us like we talk in a certain language to one another. Its language is symptoms. That's how it tells us what it needs, or what it doesn't need, or what it needs to let go of, or what isn't serving it. It's the only way it knows how. And if you think about it, it's really brilliant. But we just haven't been taught to look at it that way. So when people are struggling with their periods, with digestion, with headaches, it's so much bigger than just this body part isn't working properly. Are there environmental things and stressor things? 100%. We live in such a high stress culture and we are bombarded by pollutants and crap that are banned in every other country except here in the United States all the time. Yes, there's 100% environmental stuff that affects all of this. But do not sleep on just how powerful our emotional body is, because it tells us when things aren't working in certain areas. And I invite you to get curious and investigate any of these areas that aren't showing up for you in the ways that you're hoping they will, and see perhaps what you're holding underneath the surface. Are you angry? And it isn't socially acceptable as a woman to be angry. It's more socially acceptable to cry. As a male, it's more socially acceptable to get angry than to cry. So let's look at these things. Are we holding emotions? Maybe we're angry at the fact that our voice isn't heard. We might be seeing things in multiple places, but they're connected to one another. Our feelings of self-worth get challenged on a regular basis because society tells us we have to work like a man. We have to have sexual prowess. We have to want it, but not want it. We have to have a certain body physique. The list goes on of all these things that society expects in the perfect performance of femininity. And it's all bullshit. The most natural feminine energy in the entire world is to receive. Everything else is just a performance of your authentic essence self. And anytime we get outside of what feels aligned to us, that's where we become symptomatic. Because we're going against what our body feels is right for us. And sometimes that's not the most popular decision. It doesn't have to be. It's okay. You are a sovereign being. And the more you stay true to who you are and expressing what feels best for you and not doing things because other people are, but because it feels aligned and makes you feel happy, the healthier you will become. I am sitting here as a 40-year-old woman, healthier than I've ever been in my entire life. But I've also had people in my life who have made comments like, whoa, you're a lot more outspoken than you used to be. yeah, I'm a lot healthier too. I'm not shy about expressing, no, that doesn't feel good to me. I'm not interested in doing that. That makes me feel scared. You go ahead and have fun. I'm going to support you over here from a distance, but it feels scary to me and it doesn't feel good in my body. I was a people pleaser. Man, I was such a people pleaser when I was younger. And I lost myself. And in losing myself, I lost my health. My 20s were the sickest years of my entire life. My late teens and my 20s were the sickest years of my entire life. And it's because I didn't live in alignment with who I was. I knew who I was as a kid. I knew what brought me joy. I would put crystals in my pocket, and I liked to play music and dance in the living room and not care who was around me and what anybody thought. And then as I got older, I started worrying about that stuff. And I used to internalize comments from others because I was a sensitive person. And I didn't like how that felt. So I tried to be a chameleon and be something that I was not. And the more I did that, the sicker I got. And we all, at some level, have done this at some point in our lives because we just want to be loved and accepted. But the truth of the matter is we are loved and accepted by the people who get us. And not everybody's going to get you, and that's okay. I spent too much of my life trying to be everything to all people and realized that life's too short. And I got healthier and healthier and healthier. And reproductive related challenges went away. Digestive challenges went away. I haven't had strep throat in years. Headaches went away. All that stuff left my life. The more I became true to who I am at the essence level, who I came out as a child, the joy that I felt as a child, the more I learned how to play again and give less of a crap what anybody thought. I've been the mom that's dressed up with my kids for Halloween every year. I go trick-or-treating, full makeup, full costume. Why? Because I always used to think that was fun as a kid. And now my teenagers kind of look at me and be like, Mom, but I don't care because I still think it's fun. As a 40-year-old woman, I still think it's fun. So I do it because it brings my heart joy. And I love that my husband is totally game. He gets me, right? He's totally game to dress up with me. Heck, sometimes he and I dress up now and the kids don't because it's not cool to do that. And I try really hard to model for them. Just live your life for you because that's so important and we lose sight of that. So I'm going to close with this. Take a deep breath without distractions and relax down into your body. And let your thoughts float around the parts of your body that aren't working optimally for you. And think about potentially the emotions that are laying there. What is it that no longer serves you, that is keeping you from living your most vibrant, healthiest life? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.